Sorry for the wait, but I'm back with SUVs. Performance car brands are for car enthusiasts, at least kind of. They're made with car enthusiasts in mind, but rich people who don't know the first thing about automobiles like to buy them as well. That being said, car enthusiasts generally don't like SUVs quite as much as any other type of car. Now, I'm not saying I completely agree with that because I understand that SUVs have a purpose, but I get where people are coming from because they just don't like how there's so many SUVs. Like, to a point where it doesn't make sense. I'm just saying. So it's kind of weird when a performance luxury brand decides to make an SUV. Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin, so on. Actually, not really so on. I can't think of any other examples. Anyways, it makes a lot of sense for a brand like Rolls-Royce or Bentley to release an SUV because their whole thing is comfort and, rich people like me. But again, for sole performance brands, it seems like a strange choice. Why make a car that's entire purpose is practicality when your experience and customer base lies in performance? Porsche was the first to break away from a sports, super, and hypercar only lineup with the 2002 Cayenne. However, the reason wasn't because they decided to do a midlife career shift, it was because, frankly, they needed the money. Obviously, practical cars have a wider market to sell to, and thus make more money. Just look at how the Urus makes up for most of Lamborghini's sales. Since Porsche couldn't make enough money selling enthusiast sports cars like the 911 and Boxster, an SUV was the perfect solution. As you could have guessed, it was not received well initially, especially by Porsche's infamous brand purists because they thought it was 1, ugly, and 2, a sellout. Whether it's ugly is up to your opinion, but to be fair, it was pretty much the definition of a sellout, since Porsche's whole identity was sports cars, and the only reason they decided to make an SUV was to get money. They were struggling, then they did the whole SUV thing, and then they stopped struggling so much. Lamborghini's Urus was created for a similar reason. It wasn't quite as drastic because Lamborghini wasn't having as much financial difficulty as Porsche was in 2002, but it was made to pretty much get that bag. Lamborghini likes money, don't we all? And they realized an SUV under the iconic Lamborghini name would sell like, what's something that sells well? Sells like food at the grocery store. What? That's not a good joke? That wasn't funny? Okay. Counterpoint, shut up. Aston Martin's DBX and Ferrari's Purosangue, 2 and 5 years later respectively, were made both to get money like the others I talked about and as a response to the Urus, because they realized how well that was working out for Lamborghini. Surprising nobody, Ferrari made theirs $200,000 more than the base Urus and DBX, but they're pretentious, so of course they did. I think the real reason for the more expensive price tag was to keep the brand exclusive, because they don't want to look like a sellout like Porsche, but it worked out well for Porsche, so I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing what they did, but now that we're done talking about performance brands that do make SUVs, let's take a look at brands that don't, which is why you clicked on this video. Sorry for the wait. McLaren and Bugatti are the main ones that come to mind. I'm also going to talk about Koenigsegg, but that's a special case, so I'll go into that a little bit later. McLaren is the next brand you would expect to make an SUV, because their main competitors are Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Porsche, all of which already have an SUV. So why doesn't one of the supercar big five have an SUV if it works so well for their competitors? Before I get into the answer, I should probably tell you that McLaren is rumored to be making some sort of SUV adjacent vehicle, but nothing is officially confirmed yet. So even though I keep saying that an SUV is an easy way out of financial problems, that's only if you have the funds to build it in the first place. In order to have a car, you need to have a platform, and a platform can be extremely expensive to develop. Lamborghini, being a part of the Volkswagen Group, had a perfectly good platform to use for the Urus without having to build one from scratch. You know how you're always hearing that the Audi RSQ8 is almost the same as the Urus? Well, the platform is a big part of it. McLaren has no parent company like Lamborghini, and they definitely don't have as much money as Ferrari. Because they don't have anybody to take an SUV platform from, their only choices are building one from scratch, which might be what they're doing, but is sure going to be expensive, or using one of their existing platforms, which wouldn't work well because they're all mid-engine, low, and two-seaters. I'm sure that if McLaren maybe made a deal with a Mercedes or something and used one of their platforms and then somehow didn't spend all of their money on the project, an SUV could help them out a lot. And again, there are rumors about such a car, so maybe they figured out a good business plan and it's all gonna happen. It is weird though, because McLaren as a brand historically historically didn't want to make an SUV, but they're under new ownership now, so maybe they've changed. Unlike McLaren, Bugatti isn't a supercar brand, it's a hypercar brand. Performance-wise, the further away you get from economy car brands, sports car brands, and supercar brands, the less likely you're going to build a non-performance car like an SUV. Bugatti's origins, however, unlike Pagani or Koenigsegg, aren't only in performance. They've always had deep roots in racing, yes, but they've also historically been into luxury, just like the Big Royce. That's my nickname for Rolls-Royce because we're close like that. So it wouldn't be crazy if they made an SUV. Bugatti says they don't want to make an SUV because it wouldn't do justice to the brand, but they've made a four-door concept before. That doesn't mean it's an SUV, but it's awfully similar, and if they're so adamant about not ruining their brand image with one, why do they give a sedan the time of day? I don't know, but the reason they don't make an SUV is a lot simpler than McLaren's reason. Along with not wanting to, they kind of don't need to. Sure, SUVs bring in a lot of money, but if Bugatti had one, it would probably end up being just as exclusive as their other models, so the whole more money thing wouldn't even work. In conclusion, Bugatti doesn't want to make an SUV, and they also don't have much of a reason to do so, even though in my opinion it wouldn't be that crazy if they did. Ferrari and McLaren also said they don't want to make an SUV before, and look at them now, so don't be surprised when Volkswagen rebadges the RSQ8 as a Bugatti. I'm just kidding, that probably won't happen, but look, hey, anything's possible. Koenigsegg time. Now, you might think it's weird I even decided to mention Koenigsegg in this video, but the reason I did so was because they're Bugatti's main competitor and because they kind of do have an SUV. Well, not really, it's more of a hypercar sportback coupe GT thing. Just to clear up what I said a couple seconds ago, it's honestly nothing like an SUV. But what I really mean is that its purpose is to be a practical hypercar. Remember when I said that thing about SUV's whole purpose being practicality? Yeah, me neither. I don't know if I ever said that, actually. Point is, Koenigsegg doesn't make an SUV, but they do make a car that sacrifices some performance for some practicality, just like a performance brand's SUV. Now, the Koenigsegg Gemera, whatever, is like a crazy hypercar. It doesn't seem like it sacrifices any performance, but if it didn't have the back set of seats, for example, it would be more performance oriented, if you understand what I mean. What do you even call this? A fastback coupe GT? Apparently it's a mega GT, whatever that means, but I don't know. At the end of the day, all this makes sense from a business standpoint. McLaren needs to compete with Ferrari, Lamborghini, Porsche, and Aston Martin somehow, because if they don't, they'll get left behind or go bankrupt. It's just the unfortunate truth. Bugatti's brand makes more sense for an SUV compared to McLaren, but they have almost no reason to make one. Only reason I can think of is for Volkswagen to compete with BMW, because BMW has the Rolls-Royce Cullinan, but that's still hardly a reason. Koenigsegg's brand makes no sense for an SUV whatsoever, but against all odds, they have the closest model to an SUV out of the three we talked about in this video. Though that's probably going to change once McLaren shows us their new SUV, if that rumor's even true. Thanks for watching and whatnot. Subscribe if you liked it, and leave a hate comment or what? No, don't do that. I don't know why I said that. Leave a nice comment, or if you want, I don't care.